accredited design program. And so basically, being involved as a student in the NKBA, I got extremely active in the general industry, and that very early on opened a lot of unique doors for me. Most notably, in 2013, I was part of the inaugural 30 Under 30 program, and through that opportunity, got to work with a lot of different brands and do a lot of speaking and continuing education courses and development through time. And so truly, design has been a passion for me, and I've really had a just a sincere, grateful passion for this line of work. And it's been really awesome that people have recognized that, and it's opened a lot of doors.
Awesome. So to kick into just our topic for the day, where do you most commonly find inspiration? Like, let's talk about in normal settings, and if we go back 6 or 7 weeks, where's your place for inspiration?
Sure. So I do think, two of the common sources for me for inspiration is, first and foremost, travel. I mean, I think getting connected to the world is a really powerful thing, and realizing that you can be inspired truly by the world around you. So the simple color of a flower in nature, or the way that a certain architectural vernacular can inspire certain details in your designs, that's all really powerful to get out there. And whether that's in your local community and just kind of getting out there on the street, or for me, I really love to get out there into other countries and different cultures and things of that nature. And I think for me, it's really powerful because you feel this realization that you're so small in the world when you travel. And I think that's a really, again, a powerful thing to realize that there's just such a greater world and a lot of ground to cover, and you can truly be inspired by that. So I think that, for me, is probably my biggest source of inspiration.
Yeah. Well, then the world has definitely taken a shift with that in place. So
Sure.
How has finding inspiration shifted for you? I mean, I know that you're building a studio right now. You're looking for inspiration. So where are you going to find that now?
Sure. So another common source of inspiration for me actually is music. I mean, creatively, I really love, like, my Spotify account is everything in the sense of really generating creative energy for me. I always say, like, it's the most random playlist that you'll ever experience. It can jump from Jay-Z to Frank Sinatra in the click of a button. So, I do think music gets me in a creative spirit. And right now, given that we're in a bit of a different, world right now, I do think I'm turning a lot more to, those types of outlets or mediums, if you will, to create that creative spirit. But as I mentioned before, even if it's just as simple as getting outside in your local community, I mean, really just trying to find the appreciation that truly everything around you, everything that you interact with, has been designed in some capacity, right? And I think that's something that we often neglect and we take for granted. The pen that you pick up to write on the piece of paper, or the car that you get into, as a mode of transportation, or the building that you live in, whatever. Like, those are all things in some capacity that were designed by someone. So I think, keeping your eyes open. There's a great quote: keep your eyes open, keep watching, because whatever you see can inspire you. Grace Coddington. And I think that's a really powerful quote, and realizing that the world around you is how you can be inspired.
That's good. Yeah, we don't have to jump on a plane or go on to a new city in order to find it. So, storytelling, what is the difference? You've been prepping for this, you've been telling me a lot about this idea of storytelling. So for our guests, can you kind of describe what the difference of inspiration versus storytelling is, and kind of how you define those differently?
Yeah. So for me, we have to realize in design that ultimately this is a type of sales job, right? You have to sell your client ultimately on your vision. And I always say, what's really interesting about design school is you get this hypothetical client, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, right? And they have X, Y, and Z um, on their wish list or their program, if you will, that you have to, design this space around. But what you don't realize about Mr. and Mrs. Smith is that those are real people that you're truly having to interact with and connect with on some level. And, they can't really teach you that in college, or, in that experience of just true personal connection. So for me, I really, when I'm, working with a client, I really try to engage in what I call storytelling. And that's picking up on the things that they respond to. So when you're trying to make that connection with a person, you're trying to understand what makes them tick. What are they gravitated towards? If they're in an existing home, I love walking around that home and finding out the pieces that they respond to, whether it's that beautiful piece of art they invested in or that heirloom piece of furniture, something that clearly has made an emotional connection, right? And that's really what you're trying to respond to and understand more further is what emotionally drives them. And ultimately, that in theory is a source of inspiration, but how do we take that inspiration one step further? We have to tell a story. And that's really helping, taking that form of inspiration or that item that they respond to, and then building a story around it of how you've developed this concept for their new space.
Cool. Can you give us an example of that?
Sure. So I had a really wonderful client in Annapolis, Maryland, and it was a really notable kitchen that I did 2015, and it was published in House Beautiful magazine. And it was a very historic home. There was a really cool story actually about the home. There was like local lore that Woodrow Wilson used to hang out in the like Palladian window of this home. Like it was a really historic structure, right? So that was first a piece of information that I actually found out through the real estate agent, and I thought was a really cool story. So we took the vernacular of the Palladian window in the front. I used that as a source of inspiration. And then how did we take that one step further? That client specifically had a lot of wonderful heirlooms and antiques that were kind of passed down through generations in their family. And I actually, in traveling, I was in London for the London Design Festival that year, and I took an antiques tour in the Cotswolds of London. And specifically, there was this amazing antique that just reminded me of the client and a lot of her pieces that I had seen through time of working with her. And so I literally took a cell phone shot, I texted it to her and was like, this is the inspiration for your kitchen island. And so we developed this beautiful fine piece of furniture as inspiration for her kitchen island. And that was a pretty kind of iconic kitchen, if you will, that a lot of people started recognizing me for, just because it was so distinctive in its design and details. But truly, it was all inspired by the client. And we really built this story about, the heritage of the home and these fine pieces of furniture. And then kind of taking that one step further, we even took the story into interweaving her family. We had a beautiful kind of engraved piece in her cabinetry that was this quote actually that her grandmother used to always say. And we just made it really personal. And again, what you're helping do is you're helping them tell a story in their space.
I feel like those little things are what makes it a home, right? Too, versus it being a house. I can fall
100%.
into that of like, you look at pictures on Instagram or on Pinterest and you try so hard to recreate that thing, but that's at a home.
And to your point, I mean, for me, like I really encourage people not to look at the Pinterests and the houses of the world. Like, I don't use those as inspiration. I just believe in distinction and making it personal to that person.
Mhm.
If you've heard me talk about this, I've said it before and I will continue to say it. I call it being the chameleon to the client. It's really taking their raw energy and ideas and how do we enhance that in every which way imaginable. And so, it's often even leading them in a direction that they never saw for themselves. But again, ultimately, you're responding to some sort of emotional connection, to helping them pen their story.
That's really good. So, as most of y'all know, we've worked with Richard to develop a new look and feel for Monogram. Over the last 2.5 years now. And a lot of that information came from insights gathered from trends and from research and development with clients and potential clients. So, Richard, can you give us an idea of the look and feel for the brand?
Yeah. So, to your point, I've been really grateful to work with the Monogram brand and the team as a whole. It's the relationship, as you know very well, it started very organically, truly coming to Chicago for a training years ago. I mean, that now would have been maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And just really connecting with the team, really seeing the direction of the brand and how it was trying to evolve. And one of the things actually that really responded to me personally was this message of elevating everything. And I was really inspired by that as a designer. I think that's a really powerful message. And so, as you all know, I mean, the relationship again grew very organically, where we started working together on different networking events and continuing education courses and things. And then that really evolved into something a lot more um, kind of next level, really, where we got to really mold a new vision for the brand. So over the last 2 years, we've worked very diligently to create a new look and feel visually to the Monogram brand. And so I think when you look at that vernacular to the brand, it definitely has a clean line aesthetic. I mean, we have the two new product offerings, the Minimalist Collection and the Statement Collection. Both in their nature are more of a streamlined contemporary feel, but of course one hits a little bit more on that transitional level, and then the other one is much more contemporary. And then, so I was really inspired by those products. That really slim lining on the Minimalist Collection was actually something that just really excited me as a designer. I thought that was very progressive detailing. And so actually in the kitchen vignettes that Elise and Alex have in their backgrounds, you can see that we use that actually as inspiration. So we developed, the really streamlined door styles on the cabinetry, just developing truly, again, a simpler style to the vernacular of these spaces. We found through research actually that clients were responding to these light and bright spaces, which totally makes sense in the sense of trends that we have seen on a more global environment. As humans, we develop or we respond to natural light. So light, airy, open, spacious, these are all attributes that people really respond to. So you'll see a lot of the kitchens that we designed over the last couple years definitely have this very overall light feeling and palette. But how do we take that one step further and more interesting? It's really about layering textures and while still keeping that neutral palette. So we brought in that beautiful whitewashed ceruse cabinet with high contrast elements like the blackened steel or the dark walnut. And then, of course, one of the main features, certainly in the Monogram brand, that has made it more notable are the brass accents. Certainly, the brass is what I call is your contrast element. So stainless steel we've seen for so long on appliances, and I think it's really refreshing to see this, more warmer approach to these brass accents. It just makes the the appliance come to life more, have more personality. And that's what we're also really trying to develop here is, more of a personality to these spaces. And you can certainly see that with the brass statement hood that's behind you in, that kitchen, for example.
Yeah. We're sitting in our kitchen from KBIS,
Yeah.
and I thought what was really great about the whole KBIS booth this year, in particular, was how you really took those brand elements and the look and feel of our appliances and then translated that into a display. So can you tell us, I know you talked a lot about the incorporation of the kitchen table and whatnot. So can you just take us kind of from start to finish a bit of from inspiration to design phase into the space that you actually made?
Sure.
Does that
So,
make sense? That was
yeah,
a lot.
no, well, here's the thing. To what you're speaking to, we developed this look and feel and palette ultimately to the brand. Um, and that palette has been implemented now across the US and, on a global level as far as the look and feel to the brand, right? But KBIS in its nature is our concept vehicle, right? And so we need to be progressive, we need to be forward thinking, and we need to show the evolution and the direction of where the brand is going. So it's like, how do you take this look and feel that we've developed but still make it refreshing and interesting for people so they don't feel like they're just getting this regurgitated look over and over, right? We want to inspire others and certainly keep people engaged on that visual level. And so it was really, again, taking that palette and the vernacular that we developed and heightening it to more of that concept vehicle. So in the kitchen that's behind me, this kitchen was developed in the idea of, again, we're telling a story. So I'm sitting in the Beverly Hills, California kitchen, right? And it's like, how do we take that palette of the brand, but show it much more on that Beverly Hills level? There's an element of glamour. There's still a streamlined aesthetic to it. It's still that kind of neutral palette with high contrast. But where are we showing those modes of innovation? Behind me, you can see that the ovens, we actually recessed into the wall for a cantilevered effect to give it more of this open bookcase concept. So I really loved playing with that idea because everyone at this point has seen an oven in a wall cabinet, right? But we are innovative. We're trying to push the brand to the next level. And so it was really fun to explore this idea or concept of this floating oven element, and I wanted it to feel like it truly was in a bookcase. So you can see the beautiful hutch that's below, it has great storage, and then we even backlit the ovens just to create that extra additional level of detail. And as we know in design, details are everything, and I love diving into the details and making the space much more interesting and dynamic. And what I'm so appreciative is, as a brand, we have such a wonderful synergy together where, the collective brand and team also appreciate those details. So, I really get to have fun developing the KBIS booths and designing those details. So, the whole story with the kitchen behind me on a bigger level was I was really inspired by French vernacular and design. So we called it a contemporary take on French gourmet. So a French kitchen classically has some sort of cooking element as a range and a heating element under one hood or chimney. So how do we make that in a much more contemporary form? We took the hearth oven and the brand new 48-inch range, and we put it under one hood, which is that, the beautiful antique mirrored hood that is behind me. And we also developed this more furniture concept, and you can see that in the sense of the bookcase and the refrigeration built-ins. And then we wanted to tell the story also of the return of the kitchen table. For so long, we've been lined up on an island, right? Everyone's in a line shoulder to shoulder. You're at kind of that bar concept, if you will. And that doesn't really create good conversation. And I think for so long, we've been in this hustle and bustle of today. And if there's one thing that we can appreciate about this time right now, we're forced to be at home And I think it's like an opportunity to log off, right? And truly just engage with the people around you and realize that, like, as humans, good conversation and connecting with a person is really powerful. And so it's kind of interesting that we're telling that story without knowing that all this was going to happen so many weeks later. I mean, KBIS was not that long ago, right? And who would have thought like we'd be here right now? But we were all, the story was to develop a banquet concept. Think about like putting the phone down, putting the computer away, sit around the table, have a great conversation with your loved ones. And we really wanted to tell that story. So, that really was the emotional connection behind what developed this Beverly Hills lifestyle kitchen.
That's cool. I think we'll see more shift in that too. To your point, we're spending more time in our homes. We need like multi-use spaces.
Totally.
So again, kind of shifting back to the clients and storytelling as a whole. Do you feel, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but do you feel like storytelling enhance your sales?
100%. So
wait, before you answer that, I had some questions that I'm supposed to pause. Alex, I know you have a couple questions over there. Do you want to ask Richard before I shift gears again?
Yeah, absolutely. So Richard, the first question we have is, can you tell us a little bit about the unique yacht project that you did?
Oh yeah, so actually, I've done 2 yacht projects through the years. The first was a light refit with a great client in Maryland. He had acquired a yacht, and in the main salon and dining room was trying to give it a bit of a refresh. So we developed this really beautiful piece that on one side was a custom wine refrigerator, and on the other side actually had an entertainment concept. It was a TV built in with just a more, again, in that living room concept. They were looking for more of that home theater. So that was a really cool project because that was my first time ever dealing with something other than home construction, right? And so really diving into the world of yachts was a whole new dimension of variables and challenges that I was, was totally new, uncharted water, if you will. So that was really fun. But what was really interesting was that client, we had a lot of success with that piece, and someone approached him about purchasing that unit. So he ended up selling it and then acquiring a new vessel where it was gutted down to the hull. There was a really fantastic yacht designer out of LA that was involved in the project that kind of set the master plan, if you will. As dynamic or different as a yacht is, there's still the basic principles of kind of the process. So just like developing, a great piece of architecture, there's the programming and all these different phases of design development, schematic design, all of these things, right? And so we still went through that same overall arching process, if you will, through the vessel. But it was a lot more comprehensive in the sense of a full refit. So it was pretty amazing, really. I mean, every couple weeks going to Fort Lauderdale, dealing with this refit. And then by the end of it, it was about a little less than a year process, which was extremely aggressive for the amount of work that was done on the ship. But getting to go to the Fort Lauderdale Yacht Show, which is an international boat show where these mega yachts, this is a 165-foot vessel, major multi-million-dollar investments made on these things, and to be able to be there and celebrate that process. They actually sponsored this really cool event with our yacht and Rolls-Royce, and got to showcase it, and actually won refit of the year internationally in the Monaco yacht show in Monaco. So it was way beyond just a very unreal project, to be honest, that I just was sincerely grateful to be a part of.
Yeah, it sounds unique. It sounds like it stretched you in many different ways as a designer too, which is pretty cool. And I'm sure you love always having those new challenges and obstacles.
100%.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, so the next question is people are loving the wall ovens behind you. And so asking a little bit more about the installation. How was that done? Did you have to wrap them in stainless steel? The exposed sides, top and bottom?
Yeah. So, this definitely is giving you guys the inside scoop here. So for sure. So, the reality of an oven is it has to be structurally supported. So there was steel bracketing developed and customized for these units to be properly supported within the wall. So that's first and foremost, the big thing to stress is, of course, they still have to be structurally supported. And then taking that one step further, we did develop custom stainless steel sides, basically a stainless steel box that still fit the oven cavity and allowed those units to look like they were fully finished on all sides.
Okay, great. Thanks for the explanation. And then another question here is, how does fashion play a role in your design work for inspiration?
Yeah, so in the nature of, as we talked about in inspiration, I very much encourage, as I said earlier, I don't use Houzz or Pinterest images. Like if a client brings those to me, I quickly kind of table them and really try to connect with them on a different level. I often encourage them to understand what are other things they respond to. So if there's a wonderful pair of shoes or a certain outfit that they just really love, like it's like picking up on those little details. And so for me, fashion design is definitely something where I find inspiration because there's still, again, an architectural element to it. There's some sort of structure or detail to the development of that product, right? And so for me, it's fashion is certainly something that I get inspiration from, but I encourage you, if you don't per se respond to fashion, what is it that makes you tick? Again, is it vehicles? Is it some sort of other industrial design, plumbing products, appliances? It could be flowers. It can be, there has to be something that makes you tick or gives you that kind of tickle inside of you, if you will, where you find that euphoric experience or mood. And that's really what you want to develop, is that level of excitement and be able to express that to others of how you found inspiration in this item that gets you excited, which in turn helps them tell the story in their space of, you use that as a source of inspiration to develop this concept.
That's really well said.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's all we have for right now, Elise. So I'll go ahead and flip it back to you.
Okay, perfect. All right, so to return to the question I mistakenly asked you before, but you're starting to talk to us about how you feel storytelling does or doesn't enhance your sales.
Yeah, so it of course enhances your sales because you're able to articulate this thought process. And what does it do? It emotionally drives a connection or truly, there's a science behind this of, responding to someone's emotions. It creates a trigger that gets them excited, right? And taking that level of excitement, they're responding to that element. And so naturally, it's going to create the classic want, where they want that item, because why? You responded to this story that they feel an emotional connection to, and they want that element. So I always stress to people early on in my career, I didn't always sell luxury. I mean, I'm like really grew up blue collar kid from Pittsburgh, like it was just all about, kind of hard work and whatnot. But I've always been inspired and very tactile by design and materials. And so I naturally get really excited about materials and details and things of that nature. And so for me, early on in my career, I would develop these concepts for people where it would fit in their budget. If it was more middle of the road kitchen and bath, concept, it fit in their budget, I'd show them that concept. But I would also take the time to develop a bigger idea that was something that I was really excited about. I told a story behind that idea. And what I realized very quickly within my first year or two of designing was how many people were willing to purchase that bigger idea. And truly, that is the heart of what we can bring to the table. I always encourage designers to realize to not be so literal. Like when you walk in and that person is like, oh, I just need new countertops in this kitchen, I just want them replaced, that's it. I mean, within my first year of working, my two biggest contracts truly were people that called for countertop replacements. So I could have walked into those spaces and just took the measurements for new countertops and sold them new counters. But I took the risk that, to be honest, I felt like I had nothing to lose of when I walked into those spaces, it was like, you don't need new counters. We need to blow out this wall. We need to, rip these cabinets out. There's a much bigger idea or much bigger potential here. And those were my two, over $200,000 in just cabinet sales. Those were really big contracts for my first year of design. And it was because I helped them see a bigger idea that they didn't realize was the potential, right? And so again, that's storytelling. You're helping them see a different vision. And that, of course, is enhancing your sales. Because I'll tell you what, I mean, within my first year, those two contracts in cabinet sales were much higher than if I just did countertop replacements. So that's, true examples of, it increasing my sales.
We spoke a couple weeks ago with Luann Nagara, and we were just talking about a similar concept, but she stressed, don't not ask the question if you're not selling to yourself, like your client. And so remembering to put yourself in their shoes. And I thought that was really good of how can I grow this? How is it really matching their lifestyle or their needs? And so I think that kind of resonates the same point.
Yeah, and to what you're speaking to, I will always remember this. Someone early on in my career made a comment to me, something along the lines of that as they kind of watched me in a meeting or whatnot, is that I presented concepts that weren't of my own wallet, if you will. I think there's certain people in design that are so mindful of well, I wouldn't spend X amount of dollars on that appliance or that faucet. So they're almost psychologically afraid to put it out there, right? And my big thing is I just believe in quality and I believe in design. And so I put it out there extremely confidently, you need this faucet, this is what's going to make your kitchen next level, right? Or you need this appliance. Again, early on in my career, people told me that in the area that I started my career, that I would never sell luxury appliances, so that $6,000 to $8,000 integrated refrigerator, that's just not that market. That is literally the only refrigerator that I ever sold in every kitchen because I believe in integrated appliances and I can speak to the value of them. So you have to be able to be confident about that and help people see and understand, that investment and why it's important to elevate their space. Yeah,
that's awesome. So what creative methods or how do you kind of present that storytelling then to your clients? Is it strictly conversation or do you have props, for lack of a better word, or different methods of presenting that prop?
I often book performances. Yes, we usually get you know, no, I'm kidding.
Like a curtain, right? Like it's a performance. Just
But it truly is, though. I mean, we laugh about this, but there really is a performance or kind of a dance, if you will, that you have to take them on this journey. I mean, when you think about telling a story can fall really flat if you don't have the visuals. And I can give you an example. In 2016, I believe it was, I was approached by DXV Luxury Plumbing to do a national ad campaign for them. So they said, hey, will you design a kitchen around our products, right? That was a really phenomenal opportunity, something I was really excited about. And when I was trying to find inspiration, what do? I turned to music to get into a creative spirit. And I wanted to tell this story about the idea of old and new. And because that was the concept behind their brand, where they take historic references of the past and develop new products, right? And so I found this song that was literally, it was Frank Sinatra's New York, New York mashed up with Jay-Z's Empire State of Mind. And it was literally like this old and new mashup, right? And so I was so inspired by that song, truly, that we had to fly to Minnesota to present these concepts to the team. And we honestly had a really kind of small budget to develop these spaces. And if anyone knows that kitchen of mine from that ad campaign, you can look truly at those photos and realize that it was a very expensive kitchen. And I'll tell you this much, that I presented this bigger concept because I saw this whole room in my mind. I was just so inspired by this song. I started designing a space, and I developed this much bigger idea or concept. And so when I presented, we were in a warehouse. We were in the studio of where they were going to be building some of these products. So their whole team's lined up. With my cell phone, I grabbed a glass and I started playing the song. I put my cell phone in the glass to magnify the sound. And I presented this idea. I started showing these images. I used samples to create the mood and the feeling that I wanted. I wanted them to feel what I felt when I was designing this room. And so I presented them a much bigger concept than what that little budget was of what I was supposed to stick within that constrained little box, right? But that's just not how creatively I think. So I saw this much bigger thing. I wanted to present it. I pitched it to them without a question across the board. They were like, we love it. Let's do it. Let's go with it. So it was not even questioned. And again, if I would have immediately restrained myself to be confined in that little box, that project would not have been truly what it is today. And so I love to tell that story again, just for other people to try to think about that, of how you can present to your clients and realize that it really does make a difference, that the way that you're communicating to them, you have to be excited about it in order to have them buy it, right?
that's awesome. Yeah, so I'm hearing samples, mood boards, radio systems, speaker. I'm just kidding, but that's awesome. Okay, so last question in terms of this topic before we go to call it the chat lines. What is some actionable steps or tips that you could recommend for others kind of starting to incorporate this process or storytelling into their own sales? Like, you've given a lot of actionable advice, but would you give like one or two top takeaways for people listening?
Yeah, I think, when you're thinking of that mood board, again, I really highly encourage you as a designer to not be, when your client just comes in with those Pinterest images, do not drag and drop and cut and paste and copy it. Do not be the copycat. You are diluting the value of what you can bring to the table. If you are just copycatting, you truly are not bringing a value, and you are allowing yourself to be shopped, right? Because if all you're doing is replicating it, well, they're going to go to the next 5 places next door and just price shop you, right? You have to immediately establish a value of why that person, they want to work with you, and they're not going to look any other way, right? Because they're seeing the value and what you're bringing to the table. So in order to establish that value, you have to be articulate to a greater vision. And again, you have to be really careful with those types of images and things, because what you have to do is be able to dive in with them on a deeper level and understand what they're responding to in that photo. Instead of just copycatting that photo, let's take that one step further of like, okay, like what is it about this photo that there's some sort of, again, emotional connection to, right? And the more that you can start to kind of develop that type of rapport ultimately with the client, the more you'll realize that the crutch, if you will, of those photos are so unnecessary, because you actually have it within you. And there's, again, an element of confidence that you have to build. And that does take a bit of time and trial and error. And there are going to be those times where people are going to say no. Like you present that bigger idea and they'll say, no, I'm really sorry, I'm not into that, or I can't afford that. And guess what? That's okay, because you can still dumb it down and do the lesser idea or the smaller project too, right? But if you don't put it out there, you're never going to elevate it or take it to the next level. So I really encourage people to, again, with trial and error, realize that you have to be able to put it out there. And those are the tangible things that are a bit hard to articulate, but you have to do it in order to get in that rhythm and build that confidence.
That's awesome. Okay, Alex, any other questions that come in?
Yeah, I got a couple more over here. So Richard, what material is it that you haven't played with that you want to try and create something with?
Ooh, that's good.
Oh,
yeah,
well, actually, I've been doing a lot of prototyping with like unique glass and kind of like acrylics and things of that nature. So I've been kind of developing some different products and working on things of that nature. So those are kind of some materials right now that I'm excited by and exploring.
Okay, that's a good one. So the other question I have for you is, what do you want to see more of in the kitchen, stylistically, practically, etc.?
Well, stylistically, natural light is so imperative. I mean, a lot of our homes historically were developed in a different time frame where we were that strictly utilitarian space, and now we're so much more dynamic in these homes. And again, the silver lining of right now is what we can hope is that people are in their homes and realizing how much they hate their kitchen or bathroom or whatever, right? And they're like, oh my God, I've got to tear this thing out and, you know, redo it because it's driving me crazy, right? Because we're all at home. So I am really hopeful. You know, I think we all are going to see kind of that boom. And one of the biggest things is natural light in a space. I mean, truly as humans, we respond to natural light. So it affects our mood. It's really important that we think about how we're capturing light in a space. So that's developing natural light in a space, but also a very comprehensive artificial lighting plan as well, because that does affect our mood and emotion. And so, you know, for me, that's a really big thing right now in these spaces.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I personally, you know, I can appreciate when the sun's out these days. You know, it makes such a big difference. So to have that natural lighting in your kitchen and in your home, I can see why that'd be super important. Okay, so we got another question here. Do you find that you are having to educate your clients about the functional attributes of appliances and materials, or do they come to you with the preconceived ideas of what they want functionally? And I can read that again if you need me to.
Yeah, well, okay, two things. I'll kind of take a step back and just talk about, for me, the process of developing an appliance package. For me, I'm very comprehensively developing a concept for this overall room, a look and feel, an aesthetic, and an underlying function that I have to be able to articulate. And because it's not all just pretty stuff, it does have to work, right? So we have to be able to speak to that. And so I present personally an appliance package to the client after I've kind of been on this journey with them that I'm confident is a great kind of benchmark or a place to start. And I speak to that of like, this is the appliance package I think works in your space, and here's why. And taking that one step further, though, I do stress the importance of, I do feel like appliances come down to a lifestyle in the sense of function, and you have to really make sure that it fits the person's lifestyle needs. And so I do think it's important that you take a deeper dive into that appliance list and make sure functionally that it checks all the boxes for that person, because I do think those are very personal in the sense of, the attributes of an appliance today and the level of function and what's important to them. I mean, again, are they in that Advantium speed oven concept, or are they the new air fry in the new ovens of Monogram? Those are all really cool attributes or functions that it's important that someone understands and make sure that it checks their boxes of how they want to live.
Okay, and then I have one really important question. So what shoes are you rocking today with your fabulous kitchen background?
Oh my gosh. Funny enough, I actually have on my I have these custom Nikes, believe it or not, that I designed. I don't know if you guys use like the Nike Lab, but it's like the Nike ID. You can design your own color palette on certain shoes, and actually on the back of them you can even get like your monogram on them, so it literally has my initials on the back. So I'm fully athleisured out. I got my Nike monogram swag and yeah. So
and what are the colors of those shoes?
They're black and white, so
Okay.
just really classic aesthetic, but yeah, so that's what I got on today.
Okay, and then the last question for you is, we know you're in Nashville now, ready to launch this new studio with Kitchen Design Galleria. And so as far as the business climate in Nashville, how are you seeing things? What do you think is going to happen after this? Just give us your insight and a little bit of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so very true to my kind of nature and aesthetic, if you will, of core of design. It was extremely important to me in general in developing this new showroom that, again, it developed a comprehensive room. So they're full architectural room environments, different architectural elements, different floors, different style cabinets. We have 8 full room environments. So it's truly a residential environment concept. And in general, Nashville has been a really kind of up and coming growing market, and that's been really exciting to see. And so with all of that development, you run a little bit of a double-edged sword where you have opportunity, but you also have, with all of that opportunity, you have people kind of doing a lot of bad design as well, right? And so the biggest challenge in this market with all of that opportunity is trying to educate the consumer of good design and good practice, and realize quality, not quantity, and the kind of these attributes that are true to my core as a designer. And so this showroom is really kind of an education process as well to these consumers that we're excited to really bring online, because we're extremely confident that the products and visuals that we're bringing to this market just right now are unrepresented. And so we saw that as an opportunity and are really excited to bring this showcase to life.
That's
All
awesome.
right. Well, that's all the questions I have over here. Elise, I'll pass it back to you.
Okay. Well, to be respectful of everyone's time, we'll go ahead and wrap. There is one question that we're asking everyone on these calls. So I'm going to wrap with a fun question. It's nothing too scary. But I will first say thanks to everybody for joining and for taking their lunch hour to hang out with us at Monogram and Richard Anuszkiewicz. I hope you took something away. I know I personally learned a lot just about inspiration and storytelling and selling this concept and idea to our customers. But Richard, you ready for your last question?
I'm ready.
Okay, what's one thing that you've done in excess during quarantine, and maybe one thing that you've eliminated?
Okay, I got this. So, one thing in excess, I would say, I mean, being super candid, probably like cookie dough, you guys. Like, it's been a real issue. So baking fresh cookies, I mean, it again, it just has a wonderful, you know, whatever aroma, and so that's been a vice for sure.
At least
But
they're fresh. My cookies are coming straight from a wrapped package in my fridge, so you get that.
hey, it's good to mix it. Like I can do that too, but and then sometimes make your own, whatever it is. But that's definitely been a vice. But eliminating actually zero alcohol while in quarantine. I cut off, and it's been, so that's been like a fun detox, just in the sense of like getting, I mean, not that the cookie dough is that healthy, but like overall feeling in the day to day, like being really healthy and kind of using this time to just get back on track with a lot of those things that sometimes can be oversighted in the hustle and bustle of our natural lifestyles. It's been really refreshing to just get back into like a healthy state of mind, and a good exercise routine, things of that nature. That's been really important to me.
It's vegan cookie dough with 3 ingredients, right?
I wish I could say that was the truth, but
Awesome. Well, Richard, thank you so much for hanging with us today. And yeah, to everyone, we are meeting again tomorrow at 11 for our last webinar this week, and then we will be back for our series Tuesday. So super excited, and yeah, thanks for hanging with us, Richard.
Well, I love hanging with you guys. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Again, hope this finds you all well. And, definitely always feel free to reach out. Instagram is probably the best way. You can follow me at Richard A to Z. So definitely keep in touch, and look forward to hopefully seeing everyone soon in person.
Awesome. All right.
Sounds
Bye,
good.
guys.
Thanks, guys. Bye, guys.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.